Hello and welcome back to this week's installment of Coffee Break. I'm Dave. This is Steve, for those of you who don't know us or maybe new. We love breaking down all these different questions, and that's kind of what we're going to be going after for the next, hour.
Yeah, we're going to dive into it, take a big bite out of the questions and comments and suggestions we got throughout Fly Tying Month, render that down for you, and come back with a lot of answers, opinions, folklore, myths, old wives' tales, who knows?
Yeah.
Coming over to Dave with this one. On a lot of tailwaters, people have told me to have success, you need to fish very tiny flies and even down to 8x tippet. Is this true?
No. Sometimes, certainly fishing small flies in certain heavily pressured tailwaters can be advantageous. A lot of the natural insects floating around down in the water column are small. That is true. Do you need to go to 8x? No. In fact, I used to fish down to, 7x, 8x, and over the years, I just found it to kind of be unnecessary. 6x is kind of where I personally choose to draw the line. And I never really have any issues. I think a variety of things can be changed necessarily before your tippet size. Trying small flies, certainly, or changing a variation of the fly can be advantageous. Adding a little weight to get it to the proper portion and proper spot in the water column can be really advantageous and a good move. But I certainly personally think that one of the best things any angler can do, and this is not just in tailwater, this is saltwater fishing, lake fishing, you name it, is try to really work on your presentation of your actual cast.
Yep.
And being able to actually get that fly presented in a proper manner will get you so much further than, I have a great fly, but if your cast isn't great, it really is kind of a moot point.
Totally. You could walk up on a fish and throw an exact match the hatch type of fly with the thinnest tippet you can get away with everything being beautiful and perfect. Yeah. But if you skylined yourself walking up on this fish and they already saw you, you can spend all day throwing that rig and never touch a fish. Yeah. And as far as what people tell you to do, there's really no universal rule in fly fishing other than, generally speaking, the fish are in the water. Yeah. So you don't have to do exactly what you're told. You can make stuff work. Weird things happen with fish all the time. You catch them on weird stuff in weird ways and weird places of the river or lake or whatever. No universal rules except for they like to usually be in the water.
Yeah. I mean, you know what they say about opinions.
That's true.
What is your favorite fly for dirty, off-colored water, Steve?
A big old worm.
No
or
comment.
Leech. Yeah.
No comment.
Something that has a good sink rate, something that's going to get down. Although if you're fishing softer edges, the fish are going to be pushed out in high, dirty, off-color water. So a big old worm or
100%.
a big old stonefly. I like to stick to stuff that's dark because in muddy, off-color water, blacks and purples are gonna pop out better than your lights and neutrals and stuff like that. So a little jiggy leech or a stonefly or a squirmy.
Yeah. Although having a little hot pink in there in the springtime is a solid.
Sure.
Solid,
hot
solid
spots
choice.
and contrast, really stark contrast between bead, thread collar, dubbing collar, body, all that stuff being bracketed with really stark contrast and color will help it give a bigger kind of window of visibility to the fish. Just, those different things kind of keying off and sticking out a little bit more in the dirty stuff.
100%. 100%. All right, Steve. Do you see any difference in catch rate between barbed versus barbless hooks?
Yes and no. I think there is totally a factor of operator error. It depends on if you're the type of person that maybe your tippet is the limiting factor, or your rod angle and your positioning, or the current, or you as an angler wherever you are at with your fish fighting journey or something like that can be a factor. But when it comes down just to the hooks, I find that you actually get better purchase on the hook set with barbless because you're not trying to get it up that ramp of the barb. And if you think about that physical diameter of just a barbless hook versus the ramp of that barb coming up and how much more gauge of wire there is to get past, you're actually getting better hook penetration with a barbless hook. And then if you're maintaining a good rod angle, good tension to the fish, good sensibility when playing a fish wherever you're at, you're gonna, I feel, land more fish on barbless hooks. Yeah. The only downside I would say, and I've brought this up a little bit before, if you think about how far you can throw a pot, like a fistful of feathers versus how far you can throw a rock. You can throw a rock much farther than feathers. What do I mean by this? If you have a really oversized bead, it's super heavy, and then that barbless hook, you're giving the fish more weight to throw against. So if you get super heavy on that bead with a barbless hook, you might have a little bit more trouble keeping them on when they make jumps or big head shakes. But generally speaking, I'm going with a barbless hook myself.
Yeah, I would agree. 99% of the time I'm in the same camp. Barbless hooks are nice. It's easier on the fish. To come back to your analogy, the way I think about it and the way I look about it is when you have a barbless hook, think about a nail. You're hitting it into a piece of wood. If your nail is thicker, you got to hit it with more force to get it to drive. And if it's thinner, sure, it may not be necessarily as strong, but realistically, it's going to go in a little bit easier. Yeah. It wants to go in. So I think in that sense, barbless hooks, as anything in the industry has kind of come, the quality of the hooks has definitely gone up.
Yep.
And most of your favorite hook models come in a very similar or a completely compatible version that is just barbless. So I think it's, to each their own, but, I think it's certainly easier on the fish. You get good hook sets. And I mean, there's plenty of times I've hooked fish and caught fish where, even getting the barbless hook out is like, it went in, and so then you got to even work to get it out. But the overall damage to the fish, when you're pulling out that hook is definitely worth it.
Yeah, they're like chemically sharpened, like unbelievably sharp, like to the point where you can land a fish. I've seen it where you're looking at the way this barbless hook is in the fish's like upper jaw, and it's like a single atom of the fish is like caught by the point of the hook. They're just ridiculously sharp.
Yeah.
Like they hold on to fish really well too. All right, next question. What is the most productive dry fly for trout without regard for any hatch or matching it?
Well, 100%. I mean, if I had to choose one year-round, lakes, streams, creeks, whatever, I would choose a Parachute Adams, man. I mean, that's not that I'm just like old school. I love Parachute Adams. I think they fish great. The reality is that there's tons of different mayflies throughout the year. They do a great imitation for that. I've fished them during, chironomid hatches. They fish fine. Realistically, they kind of imitate a little bit of everything and not one specific thing. Yep. So I think in that light, certainly, I would be my choice. But, some people, will choose like a stimulator. Some people will choose chubby Chernobyl, a hopper pattern, whatever you want to fish. Personally, for me, though, I would say a Parachute Adams.
Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. Okay, so Steve, what's the best version of a loop knot?
Isn't it obvious? It's a perfection loop. It's in the name. That's the best loop to loop.
That's good.
Yeah, that's the best loop to loop connection. If you're going from material to fly, I would recommend a non-slip mono loop that's 100%. Allowing the fly to move around and have different types of action in the water. But loop to loop, use the perfection. Material to fly, whether that's Tippet or maybe you're using Maxima or whatever the case is, the non-slip mono loop.
100%. I like it. All right. So Steve, pros and cons of clamp-on wading cleats.
The pro: it doesn't take much to get it on. The con: it doesn't take much to get it off.
Yeah, so, I've had to answer plenty of emails as to why did my cleats and soles and things like that go floating down the river, and well, that's why.
Yep, you can do it very easily as a human, and the water can do it very easily as the water. So that's the pro and the con. They're usually more affordable than other traction options, but you might want to buy a backup pair if you have a trip plan, just so if that does happen, you've got a backup pair.
Yeah, totally. Okay, Steve.
Yep.
Where do you buy your flannel shirts, dude?
Yeah, this question came in, I'm assuming, from somebody watching our YouTube videos and stuff like that. Gotta be honest, I haven't purchased a flannel shirt in probably like a decade. That's just stuff that I've accumulated through hand-me-downs and steals and deals at thrift stores throughout the years of just buying flannels. Next question is, what is the best way to store your wading gear? I don't know about you, Dave, but I usually make sure to like leave a burrito in mine and like put a little bit of extra like mud and dirty water in it and ball it up and then put it in like a dark cave.
Yeah, I make sure that it is soaking wet, it is very moist, and it is in a nice, warm, dark place. No, it's not true at all. Whatever you do, whatever solution you want to go with, it's fine to put it virtually in any bag. The key to it is it needs to be dry. So I always, when I get home from a fishing trip, I just bring my waders, bring my boots, throw them somewhere warm and dry, let it dry all the way. Once you got that, throw them whatever you want. You know, for a long time back in the day, I mean, I had a big old hockey bag, man. I'd throw it right in a hockey bag. It doesn't matter. Now I have, you know, this little wader kit tote thing. You know, Fish Pond made the burrito roll or whatever they called it, the burrito bag. All it is basically a ventilated, you know, gear bag.
Yeah.
It's just not going to soak anything up. But the key to however you want to store your gear, just make sure it's dry.
Yeah, my favorite way to do it is if you have enough space to like hang waders upside down. For a while in the basement, I had a line going across these little columns, and I would hang the waders by the hooks of the gravel guard upside down, which kind of opens up the leg and it's hanging upside down.
Yeah.
Dry as a bone the next day. So
Dry as a bone.
dry as a bone.
He's got a wader line in the basement.
Really creeps you out though if you forget that they're down there and you see waders hanging upside down. Yeah,
Good stuff.
it's a good way to scare your housemates.
Why do a lot of the most popular crayfish patterns not have beads? I've never seen a crayfish not on or near the bottom.
That's a great question, and the answer and the solution to that is to fish a pattern that does have that weight to it, such as Joe's mini crayfish. We have a tutorial on this if you want to tie your own. We have the Fulling Mill commercially available pattern if you want to buy your own. And this pattern is designed to act like an actual crayfish in a river does and be down there kicking and bumping and grooving along the substrate on sandy, silty bottoms. You can even fish it in stuff that doesn't match that description and catch plenty of fish. I did exactly that last weekend. So Joe's mini crayfish, I can't tell you why some people tie them weightless. Maybe they're fishing them with, you know, a lot of split shot or a really like heavy sinking line or something like that. But as far as getting the most effective presentation of what a crayfish is actually doing, fish this guy on a tight line. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, definitely catches fish. I've seen it.
Seen it in the flesh.
I've seen it. I have seen it.
That's true. So Dave, what is the difference between a fast action or medium fast action fly rod?
Okay, so in a nutshell, fast action rods, think stiff. Medium action, just think a little bit more give. I think at the end of the day, as rod technology and rods are always kind of being twisted and designed differently and really becoming practical fishing tools, I think everybody kind of falls into whatever category they want. Some people like fast action rods, some people like slow action rods. This is certainly why stuff like, you know, split cane and fiberglass rods still exist. Both of those, typically speaking, are on the slower side of the spectrum. Personally, I'm a faster action type of guy. I think there's a lot of pros and benefits to it. You know, certainly when you're trying to throw really tight loops, certainly when you're trying to increase that line speed, trying to throw some larger, heavier flies, certainly when you're trying to fight large, heavy fish, you'll find that fast action rods certainly have a tremendous amount of benefit to them. Now that being said, there are some rod companies that design slower rods, but realistically are still designed for bigger fish. Great example of this would be the Echo Badass Glass, which is a sweet rod. Is it the fastest rod out there? Definitely not. Is it designed to be a powerful, you know, saltwater fishing tool or large freshwater fishing tool? Absolutely. And I think with most anglers out there, if you like a real casual, really lax casting stroke, I think you should go with a medium or slow action rod. And I think if you really want to get into it, you really want to be like shooting line, you really love the heavy weighted lines, you want to throw these big heavy flies and do it with the most amount of ease, I think fast action rods are pretty much just, it's the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If you want to tell like visually like what the difference is, looking at the flex profile, generally the faster the rod is, the more that bend is going to occur towards the tip, and then like a medium fast would occur a little bit lower down, and then slower and slower and slower until you see the predominant bend in the rod predominant load point in the rod.
Yeah.
Lower down for the slower stuff and higher up. So popular example that we probably all are familiar with, the Orvis Helios 3D versus the 3F. D is kind of tip flex, F is kind of mid flex.
There you go.
D is a little faster, F is a little slower.
Hey,
That's it.
like I said, different strokes, different folks. I think take it into consideration when you're pairing your line and your rod together, and then really what is the usage and what do you have in mind in terms of how are you going to be using this. So
Yeah. Last one for the day. We are going to ask Dave. I am interested in starting dry fly fishing and have been primarily nymphing for the past few years. What are some tips and pointers you would give a new dry fly fisherman? Line control, type of water, etc.
Okay, so unlike nymphing and streamer fishing, dry fly fishing gives us a unique opportunity. If you're getting into it and you're new to it, one of the best things about dry fly fishing is you can actually see a lot of the naturals that are flying around. You know, obviously, unless you have a seine net, you're not going to be you can't see the samples, the real insects that are down in the water column. Okay, dry fly fishing you can. They're flying up and around, they're cruising around, they're on the bushes, they're in the trees, whatever. They're all around you all the time. So it gives you a visual cue and the ability to actually be visual cued in to like, well, what is going on? You know, you see the little skittering caddis and a fish comes up, tries to take it. It's a great help in terms of just learning what's out and about, what are the fish targeting. The biggest thing I can say in terms of a step in the right direction that will help you, and this helps everybody, whether you're nymphing, streamer fishing, or dry fly fishing, or salt fishing for that matter. But when dry fly fishing particularly, it's very important to have a good presentation. And so really practice your casting. I think it will go so very far. Unlike nymphing, where you can kind of botch a lot of your cast and that fly and your whole setup lands in the water and everything's fine, and then it's getting drifted down and being presented to fish, that's fine. You can get get away with a lot of like slop and sloppiness as it comes to presenting because the presentation actually comes subsurface. Streamer fishing, you're throwing a bigger fly. Rarely does it come down really elegantly. It's just kind of this plop, it lands in the water, and we're actively moving it to engage that kind of strike mentality out of our fish. With dry fly fishing, you have to understand that having a good presentation, getting that fly to fully unroll in your loop, and your loop straightens out, comes down nice and straight, comes down in the water column in terms of just being very clean, presentable. Not only if you mend your line and stay in control of the amount of slack that you have, you're going to be set up for success when you actually set the hook. But overall, having a good presentation and letdown of your fly in the first place is just going to add that level of, presentability to the fish. And a lot of the time, a lot of experienced trout anglers will tell you, you could throw the perfect fly, you could have the perfect rig, you could have the perfect setup, and the fish will meticulously analyze your drift. And you'll see that big trout comes up off the bottom and he just starts tracking your fly, and you're just like, why won't you work? Work with me.
Eat the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oftentimes you can kind of get that fish to really engage and actually commit to your fly simply by having a good presentation. So my 2 cents is just work on your casting, work on having everything come out nice and straight. Don't try and hero cast to a length that you can't comfortably and presentably put down a fly. Work on that and progress from there. I'd say that's honestly as important, if not more important, than the actual hatch at hand.
Yeah.
Because during the summertime, you got stoneflies, you got midges, you got mayflies, you got caddis, you got all these different bugs going around. Trout are opportunistic. They're willing to eat most things.
Yeah.
Presenting them is a whole nother story.
Yeah. Work on the reach cast so you can cover different current lanes with slack so you can have a dead drift. So the reach cast. And then work on a cast, which I'm forgetting the name of, which ends on a slightly upward angle on the forward stroke so that it straightens and recoils, and you're ending that cast with some S curves of leader landing on the water surface. So you're just allowing for that to come back and recoil so that there's slack on the water. So that's going to prolong the amount of time that fly can hang out in dead drift. So you want it to land without contact. So that you're not tight to it, so that you're not introducing drag immediately. If you land with everything straight and taut, it's going to start dragging the second it touches the water surface. Same thing with going across different seams of current. So the reach cast and, you know, ending that cast with some recoil and slack on the surface.
Yep.
Work on that, and
then
you should be getting some nice dead drifts.
I think on the last note, from a practical fishing standpoint, let the fish eat the fly. You know how many times I've had to take people out fishing and you're like, just let them eat it. And the second the fish pops up, they're like, oh, you know, and they rip it. And you're like, no, like, just let him eat the fly. Let the fish come up, eat it, and then you can set the hook. A lot of people kind of jump the gun on that. I mean, we've all been there. But everybody gets excited. You see a fish eat it, let them eat the fly, and then set the hook. And you'll just have way better hookups. You're actually gonna get fish on. You're not just gonna clip them and then they pop right off. You're actually gonna hook more fish that way. So just be patient, which is really hard.
Yeah.
That's life. Life's hard.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning in to this session of answering your fly tying month questions. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you want to see on this channel. If you want to see more from the AvidMax YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe, turn the notification bell on, all that good stuff. Until next time, happy fishing and happy tying. Cheers, Dave.
Cheers.